We've all seen Nuzlockes, but what if ChatGPT was in charge of every single thing that was happening during a Nuzlocke? So, I went out of my way to set up a Pokémon Emerald Nuzlocke where ChatGPT is in control of everything. Now, the rules are simple. If a Pokémon faints, it's dead, it's gone forever. Nicknames for every Pokémon, we're playing in set mode, and of course, this is like my second ever attempt at this type of thing, so I'm sure I'm gonna make mistakes. Feel free to correct me in the comments. Let's get right into it. We start our journey in the back of a moving van, which pretty much everywhere is illegal, so that already proves that even though we have a father in this game, he's horribly neglectful. And what do you know, he's not even around. And so we wander around just to find this Pokemon professor getting jumped by a Pokemon. The only way to save him is to choose a Pokemon of our own in order to battle this wild Pokemon, and ChatGPT goes with Mudkip. After spamming tackle and saving the professor, we get to keep this Mudkip as our own, and we get to nickname it. ChatGPT goes with Mudboy. After doing a little bit of training, we confront May with our now level 7 Mudkip and tackle it into oblivion. That's what she gets for having a father that loves her. And we're finally able to get our hands on the Pokedex and Pokeballs, which means the run officially starts. On Route 101, we catch ourselves a Poochyena, which ChatGPT gives me an option of names, and I just choose Fang out of the options, but for some reason in its memory banks, it says Shadow, and it does this with a lot of different Pokemon, so you just have to get used to this. On Route 103, we catch ourselves a Wingull nicknamed Squawk. Route 102 gives us a Lotad, which is honestly one of my favorite Gen 3 Pokemon, so I'm really happy that we came across it. We nickname it Shrek Hat, which out of all the options, it seemed the most interesting because I like Shrek, it looks like he's wearing a hat. Close enough, right? After doing some serious training and walking around for a little bit, we run into someone interesting. Dad. So when you say you're going out to get milk, you were just standing in the gym doing absolutely nothing? Is this what I'm understanding correctly? Mom put me in the back of a moving van. Where the hell were you? Anyway, he wants me to help Wally get his first Pokemon, but he didn't help me get my first Pokemon. You know how lucky Wally is? He comes across a Ralts. I'd love a Ralts in my Nuzlocke. Dad, maybe you can gift me one? No, he just tells me to go to Rustboro, so that's what we're gonna do. On the way there, on Route 104, we catch ourselves a that I nicknamed Bubbles. And in the Petalburg woods, we catch ourselves a Wormpole. Welcome to the team, Cocoon Bro, which pretty much immediately evolves before I even make it to the next destination. Before I can make it out of the forest, this grown-ass man gets jumped by this Team Aqua member, and he decides it's smart to hide behind me, a 10-year-old. Well, I guess it was smart, because we absolutely destroy this guy with no issues. And on the way to fight Roxanne, we get ourselves another evolution. So, we're finally ready to take her on. ChatGPT recommends I start with Mudkip, and obviously that's the right move, but it keeps thinking that Mudkip knows Mudshot. It doesn't make any sense for Mudkip to know Mudshot. It doesn't even learn it at this point. I don't know what ChatGPT's on, I don't know what it's huffing. I don't think it really makes a difference because Water Gun is enough to finish her entire team. Eventually, she sends out her ace Nosepass, and I'm actually surprised at how tanky this is. I did not expect it to be able to handle Water Gun this well. And eventually uses Block on me. Now, obviously I have the advantage, but just the fact that I can't switch out in a Nuzlocke is always scary. Block, Mean Look, these type of attacks are the bane of my existence sometimes. She had an Oranberry and a potion help her out, so at this point, ChatGPT decides that I should probably potion my Mudkip. But even with that, I was taken very low in terms of health, so I just had to throw a Hail Mary Water Gun and it worked out. After our glorious victory, we run into this man again. You'd think after you got jumped by the dude in the forest, you'd be a little bit more careful, but no, he gets snatched, so he asks us to help him, but he can wait his turn because we have some wild Pokemon to catch. I was actually really happy that we caught an Encata on Route 116 because I'm a big fan of Shedinja. However, ChatGPT doesn't feel the same way and it gets benched. It turns out that that same grunt managed to steal this old guy's Wingull. As a Wingull owner myself, I feel his pain. However, he needs to wait his turn. We catch this Whismur in Rustdorf Tunnel, and now we are officially ready to help both of those dudes. After poisoning his Poochyena and sucking it dry, we were able to get the Devon goods back and get this old man's Wingull. And on the way back to sail on the old man's ship in order to get to the next town, we run into our rival, and she's itching for a battle with her two Pokemon, but I soon learned that it's not about quantity, it's about quality. After some back and forth, her Wingull manages to get a Supersonic off on Fang. Since my health is starting to get low, ChatGPT decides that a switch into Mudkip is the best play here. And eventually May decides that she wants to switch into her starter to fight my starter, so we're clearly in trouble here. ChatGPT recommends we send in our Wingull to handle this using Wing Attack, but we haven't learned Wing Attack yet. It learns Wing Attack later on, not now. After potioning, we got lucky and Trico hits itself in its confusion, but just like that, we have our first death. ChatGPT is the one that's always lecturing me. You gotta play around the crit. You gotta play around the crit. But I don't see a play around no crit. Anyway, we had to sub in Beautifly here, and Trico eventually succumbs to poisoning, which of course means that she's gonna send out her last Pokemon, her Wingull. ChatGPT recommends I send in either Poochyena or Lotad. Honestly, this is on me. If I had enough skill to understand how much damage it would have taken, I wouldn't have done that, but I guess a skill issue on my part, so I guess Poochyena also falls. But my thought process here was that Lotad can barely even touch this thing, and it's probably gonna be weak to Wing Attack. That's why I sent in Poochyena, and turns out I was right, as Wing Attack absolutely rocks Lotad. So we switch into Meryl, and while in theory this looks like a pretty good matchup, we get confused and it goes south pretty fast. So we switch into Mudkip, which can easily tank a Wing Attack, manages to get around a Supersonic, and puts an end to Wingull and May. Oh my goodness, that was such a difficult battle. But we finally get rewarded with a Mudkip evolution, and now our new Marshtomp is finally learning Mudshot. ChatGPT then wants us to switch in Whismur to our team to fill in that empty spot. But even though we have a secondary empty spot, it doesn't want us to put an Incada in there. What is with the hate? To balance out my disappointment, at least Lotad evolved. And we sail our way to Dewford Town, where in Granite Cave we catch ourselves a Zubat, which ChatGPT decides to bench for now. After some serious training, we're finally ready to take on Leader Brawly. ChatGPT recommended starting with Beautifly since it knows Gust, and I'll be honest, I didn't really need to do anything else. His Machop falls to Gust. His Meditate, what a surprise, falls to Gust. And while his Makuhita is a little bit bulkier, it does ultimately fall to Gust. After giving his Pokemon the Knuckle Sandwich and getting ourselves the Knuckle Badge, we run into Steven and give him his love letter from the Devon Corps president, which allows us to set sail for Slateport City. After doing some exploring, we were able to catch an Electrike on Route 116, and ChatGPT finally decides to bring back Zubat from the bench. After dealing with some story-related shenanigans, we run right into our rival May. Luckily for us, ChatGPT has a game plan. While our Electrike doesn't know any attacking electric moves, a combination of Thunder Wave and Quick Attacks were enough to put away the Wingull that gave us so much trouble earlier. Although Marshtomp got burned in the process, a Paralyzed Slugma was no threat at all, and Beautifly was able to take care of her Grovyle pretty easily with the use of Gust. When we started the run, I was actually kind of scared that I didn't have too much coverage, but it looks like the team is starting to come together pretty well. And we can test just how well against Watson. And doesn't bother anyone else that he's standing off to the side like that, like why aren't you standing in the middle? Anyway, Watson leads with Voltorb, and ChatGPT's plan in this entire battle is exactly the same. Send out Marshtomp and keep spamming Mudshot. His Voltorb and Electrike go down immediately, but the other two is what I'm more concerned about. Because Watson isn't just a boomer, he's a Sonic boomer with his Magneton. Fortunately, we were able to dodge a Supersonic here, and Mudshot pretty much one-shots his Magneton. His Manectric eventually connects with and hits a crit Quick Attack, which is mortifying, and not to mention, I don't know if any of my other Pokemon are capable of even taking this thing on. But we power through and get ourselves the Dynamo Badge. After our Zubat evolved to Golbat, we caught ourselves a Numel on Route 112, and a Torkoal on the Fiery Path, not to mention this Slugma on Route 113 that ChatGPT named Slugma Balls, and I have to apologize to ChatGPT here because clearly I wasn't familiar with its game. On the way to Fall Arbor Town, Electrike succumbs to poisoning and Numel dies to a Wing Attack. But we were able to catch a Solrock in Granite Falls, and we add both it and Torkoal to our party because we're gonna need both of them on Mount Chimney to square up with Team Magma. After destroying all the lackeys, we make our way to the leader. I forget if his name is Maxie or Archie, but anyways, he's gonna go down. Maxie starts off with his Mightyena, and I start off with my Solrock, and obviously he's using a Dark type here, so I had to ask ChatGPT what the plan is, and ChatGPT recommends that I switch to Azumarill. And I've heard whispers, no legends, about the power of a huge power rollout Azumarill. This is the first time I get to see it in person. After Rollout kills his Mightyena, it one-shots his Zubat and it's growing in power every time, and then he sends out his Camerupt, which also gets one-shot by the Rollout. I think I have a new favorite Pokemon on this team, guys. After our victory, we were heading down Jagged Pass and we captured a Machop. ChatGPT recommends we switch it out for Torkoal because the Norman fight is coming and a fighting type will be very handy. But before we deal with Norman, there's Flannery. Knowing that we have Marshtomp here, I'm not really struggling at all, and ChatGPT probably understands this just as well as I do. Her Numel goes down to a single Mudshot, and her Slugma doesn't fare any better. That's because it's not named Slugma Balls, it's not a Chad like mine. Her Camerupt, being a little bit bulkier, goes down to 2 Mudshots. Lastly, her Torkoal's a little bit harder, because it uses Attract on my Marshtomp, and that is a big issue. What I don't understand, as a Marshtomp, how are you simping over a turtle? A fire turtle, you're not even the same type. Torkoal's Overheat eventually leaves us with just 3 health, so we have no other choice but to switch here. So we decided to send in Bubbles because he was so clutch in the last battle. After a little bit of trouble, which includes Bubbles getting paralyzed, we were able to Bubble Beam the Torkoal to death. So we've officially beaten both Flannery and her Torkoal. Eventually, we make our way to our dad, and he's apparently excited to battle us, but he never even bothered to call once this entire playthrough. I can't wait to beat this man. I can't wait to beat this man in cold blood. Our daddy issue revenge is gonna have to wait because Spinda hits us with a teeter dance right away. You know, Spinda wasn't really on my list of threatening Pokemon, but as you can see here, it's clearly a threat. Obviously, my dad put more time into his Pokemon than he did his own son. After his Spinda goes down, he sends out his next Pokemon, Vigoroth. But we're gonna stick to ChatGPT's plan, and we're gonna switch in Solrock on this one. Vigoroth's Feint attack starts to become a real problem here, so we decided to trap it in a Fire Spin and move on to the next Pokemon. So of course, we gotta switch into my boy, Azumarill. And after we do so, I'm thinking, let's try setting up a defense curl before we do the rollout strat, because this could boost it quite significantly. Vigoroth goes down to the second rollout, which is nice. Good for me because it's only getting stronger with every rollout. Then he decides to send out his Linoon and uses Belly Drum right away, which is a disaster. Why would you cut your own HP in half when I'm on a rollout roll? The slacking that everyone's so scared of put me in a yawn, so I was a little bit frightened here, but rollout just one-shotted this thing. This is your king? This is the Pokemon you were all so afraid of? I one-shotted it. Azumarill for the W, and I have proven myself as the alpha male of this family. That's right, Dad. You don't get to tell me what to do anymore. While on the way to our next destination, we catch ourselves a Tentacool on Route 118. ChatGPT immediately wants to bench my boy Lombre for Tentacool, and I'm a little bit heated about that. I'm not gonna lie. I like Ludicolo, but I do recognize that Tentacruel can be a good Pokemon, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. And we evolve it immediately on the way to destroying Team Aqua and running into our rival. She starts with a Slugma, which we sent out Azumarill to handle, and I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm getting a little carried away with the rollout strategy. We could have easily beat it with Bubble Beam, but now I'm locked into rollout. She sends out Grovyle. This isn't looking good. It gets off a Leaf Blade, and I'm thinking I am screwed, but I got so lucky and it missed a rollout. The Pokemon gods were clearly in my corner in this battle. We switch in Echo and one-shot it with a Wing Attack. And then she sends out her last Pokemon, her Lombre, which, same story here. Wing Attack just one-shots this thing. She should know by now not to mess with me, but she does every time, so that's on her, honestly. We catch ourselves in Oddish and bench it on the way to fight Winona. Following ChatGPT's battle plan, we send out Golbat in order to combat her Swablu. We start off confusing it, and that comes in really handy, not at first, but eventually she hits herself in her confusion, and a Wing Attack is able to take her down. She follows it up with a Tropius, which is able to set up a Sunny Day, but it's not really that big of a concern, I think, and we're able to take it down with a couple Wing Attacks. As per the plan, we send out Tentacruel against her Pelipper, and we quickly get locked in a supersonic battle where both of our Pokemon get confused. She eventually healed her Pelipper, so Tentacruel isn't looking so good. So we decide to switch out to plan B, Azumarill. After snapping out of her confusion, we're able to hit it finally with Rollout, which destroys it. Her Skarmory is a bit more tanky here and goes down to 2 rollouts, which isn't good because now we're in the red. Altaria outspeeds and hits us with a Dragon Breath, putting an end to my favorite Pokemon so far in this run. ChatGPT recommends we switch into Golbat and try a Confuse Ray, which works pretty successfully so far. But even through confusion, Altaria is able to hit a Dragon Breath, and Golbat's health isn't looking so great. So now it's Solrock's turn to shine. Get it? Because the sun, shine. See what I did there? But anyway, Rock Throw is our ticket to win this battle, so I start using it, and I get a little bit scared because Altaria starts using Dragon Dance, and that's never a good thing. But she just tries setting up another Dragon Dance. That's 2 in a row, which is more than enough for me to take it out with Rock Throw, even after she healed her Altaria. After getting our badge, we head toward Mount Pyre, where we catch ourselves the Shuppet, and while accidentally bumping into every single trainer along the path, and catching a Wobbuffet in the Safari Zone. Our Golbat evolves into Crobat, which is a huge power-up for the team. After absolutely wrecking May, freeing Groudon, and catching an Electrode in the Team Aqua hideout, we find ourselves fighting off against Liza and Tate. ChatGPT recommends leading Medusa and Echo, and they're starting with Claydol and Xatu, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. Claydol's Earthquake does a huge number on Medusa, and it doesn't obviously affect Echo or his Xatu, so we decide to switch in Apollo, which also is resistant to Earthquake. Xatu's Psychic absolutely decimates Echo. I'm so happy it's still alive. ChatGPT is recommending we send an Electrode here. There is an Earthquaker on the field. Does this sound like a good idea to anyone? Rock Slide takes out their Xatu, and next is Lunatone. Claydol's Ancient Power does a number on Dynamo, but we are able to get the static off, so at least there's a positive there. Remembering my boy Azumarill, we say screw it and decide to go for rollout with Electrode, but it falls to Lunatone's Psychic. That's 2 Pokemon now that we've lost to the rollout strat, but the whole reason for that was to get the safe switch into Swampert, because half of our team is not even usable at this point. Yeah, I don't think ChatGPT remembered, it's a double battle. That's not how safe switches work in double battles. I really thought Swampert Surf would be doing more damage than this. This is actually kind of a shame. And to make things worse, they hyper potion their Claydol. With Swampert asleep, we keep spamming Rock Slide here to do a little bit of damage to both Pokemon, but eventually with Psychic, her Lunatone is able to take out Apollo. With 2 of our Pokemon dead, 2 of our Pokemon barely dead, Mudboy being asleep, and only Shrekhat being at full health, ChatGPT recommends we send out Medusa. Luckily, Swampert was able to wake up and take out the Lunatone. And Medusa drops pretty much immediately to Earthquake, which is a shame because now we're down half of our team. Shrekhat being the only thing that's not close to dead is the logical solution to send out. So we just spam Surf with both of our Pokemon. And slowly but surely, both Claydol and Solrock go down, giving us a Mind Badge at the cost of half of our team. After doing some much needed retooling of the roster, and getting a very necessary evolution, we catch ourselves a Magikarp and Sootopolis that we evolve right away. And then we free Kyogre. I like how it's on site with these guys. The second they see each other, they just have to square up. I just think that's hilarious. After sending in Rayquaza to get them to stop, it's time to fight Wallace, and I'm really missing Electrode right about now. And Electric type would come in so clutch. Following the strategy, we send out Crobat to start the fight, and I thought this was going to be easy. It's a Love Disc. Come on, it's barely a Pokemon. It barely even qualifies, but nope, I was proven wrong almost immediately. It manages to break out of the confusion and attract my Crobat, which makes no sense. It's like, how are you bad in love with a fish? I think Crobat was thinking the same thing because it manages to hit Love Disc with an Aerial Ace just for him to potion it. Eventually, being both in love and confused made it so that Crobat couldn't really do anything, and its health slowly started getting chipped away. ChatGPT chooses for us to switch into Swampert, and to be honest, I was kind of hoping to save this for Kingdra, but doesn't look like we have a choice. And of course, Love Disc uses Attract, which causes even more issues in my team. But through confusion and through Attract, Swampert shows that it's no simp and manages to end Love Disc with an Earthquake. And after doing the same to his Whiscash, we send in Machoke to deal with his Celio. A Crate Cross Chop is more than enough to handle it in one shot. His next Pokemon is Kingdra, so we swap in Gyarados to intimidate it. Once Kingdra puts itself to sleep, we take the opportunity to heal Mudboy with a potion. And it wakes up right after that, so we're gonna go ahead and potion Leviathan as well. Regardless of how much we try, his Kingdra ends up back at full health, so we decide to continue with the plan and switch in Swampert. But just my luck, Ice Beam freezes us, and we're kinda screwed here with Swampert. So after a critical hit Water Pulse, Swampert, our starter, goes down. I'm not sure why Torkoal was the Pokemon of choice here, but after it takes some damage, we obviously have to switch. Bayonet comes in next, and it manages to hit a Shadow Ball through confusion, but eventually even it goes down to Water Pulse. So now the plan is to sacrifice Machoke in order to heal Crobat, and I think this might be the only way we can win this. And this thing is still so freaking annoying, able to heal itself with a rest, able to confuse me with a Water Pulse, but eventually we are able to get through all of that and put an end to that Kingdra. We're able to confuse its final Pokemon, Crawdon, but it does hit a couple Crabhammers, so we need to heal. After we heal, Crawdon hits itself in its confusion a couple times, and we're able to finish it with Aerial Ace. Oh my goodness, we finally get the 8th Gym Badge, and that was so close to being a complete wipe. So after catching ourselves a wild Makuhita and completely retooling our team with what we have left, it's time to challenge the Elite Four. ChatGPT has a pretty good plan here, so we start with Crobat against his Mightyena and immediately confuse it. After chipping away its health, we use Fly to avoid a double edge, but it does end up hitting us, and it ends up killing itself as a result of the double edge recoil. Next, he sends in his Shiftry, which is able to tank an Aerial Ace and sets up a double team, but I have Aerial Ace, so it makes no difference, and it goes down to the second Aerial Ace. Sticking to the plan, we switch in Hariyama to handle the Absol, and we do have to take a pretty hard Aerial Ace, but Hariyama is able to one-shot the Absol. Following the plan, we switch in Crobat in order to handle Cacturn, and we just hit a single Fly, and that's more than enough to handle it. Continuing to follow the plan, we switch in Shrekhat to handle this Crawdon, and we just hit a quick Fake Out to get a little bit of damage off, and then Giga Drain is more than enough to put an end to it. That was like the easiest Elite Four fight I've ever had. Hopefully it keeps up this way. Phoebe starts off with Dusclops, and ChatGPT recommends we start off with Gyarados because it knows Bite. Now Dusclops starts off using a lot of Protects, so I'm able to get like 4 different Dragon Dances up, which is insane. That being said, I'm still biting in between those Dragon Dances, and he's Shadow Punching in between his Protects. But we're able to take it down as she sounds out Bayonet. But Bite does almost nothing, and she uses Thunderbolt on me, and Gyarados is almost done for, so we have no choice but to switch here. Torkoal's Flamethrower is more than enough to to handle Bayonet. But the real question here is, why does ChatGPT think I can body slam a ghost type? She sends out her second Dusclops, so I take this opportunity to potion my Leviathan. We're able to get a free switch because it uses Earthquake, which doesn't affect Gyarados, and we're able to get the Intimidate drop. So eventually, whittling it down with some bites and getting a lucky crit, we are able to take down the second Duskull. Bayonet Shadow Ball crits and hits hard, so we have no choice but to switch. So we send in Ludicolo, where we can Ice Beam and Giga Drain it up until it heals itself. And then after that, we just do the same thing until it passes away. Sableye is her last Pokemon, so we just decide to stay in and spam Surf, and Shadow Ball kind of scared me here a little bit, but Surf was able to get the job done, and that's 2 Elite Four members down. Glacia might have been the easiest Elite Four member I've ever fought in my life, so we start with Hariyama, and we're immediately going to bulk up here. And that is enough for me to sweep her entire team. Brick Break takes down Celio. Her Glalie goes down to a single Brick Break. Her second Celio also down to a single Brick Break. Glalie also down to a single Brick Break, her second Glalie. Wellrin, I thought Wellrin might have been able to tank one, but no, that thing gets completely one-shotted. This was the easiest Elite Four fight I've ever had. Drake, on the other hand, has the potential to be the exact opposite. He leads with a Shelgon, and it makes sense for us to lead with Ludicolo since it knows Ice Beam. Through the Protects, we were eventually able to land an Ice Beam, which instantly one-shots that thing. Next is Altaria, which outspeeds and lands a very strong Aerial Ace, but we're able to hit our Ice Beam and pretty much kill it right away. We try the whole Ice Beam thing on his next Pokemon, Kingdra, but it manages to paralyze and get Ludicolo down to some pretty low health, so we have no choice but to switch out. Sumo's able to nail a really hard facade and put an end to Kingdra, which, thank God, Kingdra has been the bane of my existence since the last gym. Next is this Flygon, which manages to get an Earthquake off, but we do some decent damage here, and it's probably smart to switch, so ChatGPT recommends we switch into Gyarados. And we take the opportunity to heal up Ludicolo and switch it in immediately. After that, Ludicolo's Ice Beam destroys Flygon and destroys Salamence. I was the most scared about Salamence, but I'm happy we were able to get it done. This is another deathless Elite Four member. So the last Elite Four member now is Wallace. Wailord succumbs to Giga Drains, and his Tentacruel is a problem because it immediately gets off a Toxic on Ludicolo. We didn't have a way to cure this except for one berry, so that's what I had to use. And the Sludge Bomb pretty much puts an end to Ludicolo, so we have no choice but to switch because 11 health is nothing. Hariyama tried, but a well-placed Hydro Pump is enough to put an end to Hariyama. Gyarados also tried, but Sludge Bomb is just too much for it, and it barely has any health left, so again, we have no choice but to switch. We tried to hit the Sleep Powder, but it misses, and we get crit on the Ice Beam. So we have to switch again. Smokey gets poisoned off a Sludge Bomb immediately, but we do get a chance to burn Tentacruel. This is it. This is our chance to heal up Ludicolo. Rest in peace, Smokey, but at least Ludicolo is ready to go. And I'm thinking he barely has any health. He's burnt. This is it for Tentacruel. This is it. And I should be set up, but no, he heals. He heals almost immediately. And then he hits me with a Toxic again. I have no way of getting rid of the poisoning now. Eventually, Ludicolo gets taken out, and we have no choice but to send in our only healthy Pokemon in Crobat. I know we outspeed here, so the goal is to confuse it, and we get that done, but even through the confusion, it hits us with an Ice Beam, so I have no choice. I'm setting up Flies. That's all I can do. But even then, it snaps out of the confusion and puts an end to Crobat. So one by one, we lose Gyarados, and then we lose our last Pokemon, Vileplume. That's it. We made it till the end of the Elite Four, but we weren't able to get it done and face the champion. That being said, the next run we're going to do is going to be 100% me, and it won't be ChatGPT directing everything. So our next run will be Pokemon Soul Silver, but I can only use gift Pokemon. That's what I have planned. So if you liked what you saw, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, check out my Pokemon LeafGreen ChatGPT Nuzlocke. This is Plot Armor Games signing out. I appreciate you watching this far, and I'll see you guys in the next video.